The word that Isaiah, son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In days to come, the mountains of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it. Many people shall come and say, "Let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths." For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. Yesterday, when I first saw the first snowflakes, when they first began to fall outside my window, there was only one thing that I wanted to do. Just days after Thanksgiving, autumn was over and winter was here, and I felt like grabbing the biggest blanket that we own, brewing up a cup of something warm, and bunkering down until the earth thawed in spring. Maybe I'm not the only one here jealous of our animal neighbors of ours who hibernate through the cold and dark months of the year. And for a long time, before the advent of streetlights and automobiles, those humans who lived where winters got cold like this did do a little more of the bunkering down than we do today. But we can't really hibernate. And enough time indoors is sure enough to inspire a little bit of cabin fever. When the days get darker and life slows down, sometimes we have to be the ones to bring back a little bit of light. It is from the depths of the cold winter months and the reality of the sadness and sickness that it can bring to many that the tradition of caroling first began. In vastly different cultures and in different lands, us humans have always marked the days with special celebrations, feasting after a successful harvest, at the time when the earth is returning to life in the spring, remembering a special day of peace in the past, or really any good excuse to take a break from the ordinariness of life to celebrate, rest, and make merry. And caroling is one of the many Christmas celebrations meant to raise the spirits amidst the cold and bitter winter. Remember the famous song, "Here we come a-caroling, among the leaves so green, here we come a-wandering, so fair to be seen." The first words, though, of that song were not "here we come a-caroling," but "here we come a-wassailing." Wassail, or wassail, I've heard it both ways, was a drink whose ingredients changed a lot over time, over the many centuries that wassail was enjoyed. But it was always something warm to drink and always had just enough alcohol to also warm your belly, as for those who partook. The song explains the practice. We are not daily beggars that beg from door to door, but we are friendly neighbors whom you have seen before. This went all the way back to the Middle Ages when peasants would go to their local lords for a blessing, singing together. And the Lord would then give them wassail and other nice treats. And in response to this singing group of friendly neighbors, the Lord of the house would invite them in, give them the wassail, and give them a blessing to keep them warm as they went. These blessings, including the word wassail, which may have originally meant good health to you, and this drink go far back to winter feasts of old, and even to bygone rituals where ordinary folk would bless their trees in their community, the orchards too, with a little bit of the wassail as well, so that they could be healthy in the coming year. As St. Francis of Assisi began to introduce Christmas carols and live nativities as a way to bring the magic of Christmas to the average layperson, these practices got intertwined into a celebration of Christ's coming, giving hope that this winter wouldn't last forever, and still with a nice warm cup of wassail. My first time caroling was with Living Peace, with you all, joining the practice that you do every year. Even though America might not have as strong of a tradition around caroling, especially today, you can still see the magic every time that we go. For some reason, these such simple songs can bring so much joy to those who hear them. Often in the bigger groups that we visit, others will join in singing along with us in a surprise chorus of hope and peace. The dark and cold feeling of winter still dissipates even without that wassail. This Advent, we invite you to join in the song. God is calling us to be carolers to this world as days grow short and as the cold wind blows. Perhaps literally, as we hope that you join us as we go caroling to spread a little bit of that Christmas hope to our neighbors. But God is also calling us to be carolers in all that we do. When so many find themselves in a season of life that is marked by anxieties, listlessness, and fear, we are called to be the surprising knock at the door, announcing in song the hope of Christ, made tangible through our presence in the lives of our neighbors. When so many fear for the future, we are to announce God's promise of peace. When so many wander aimlessly, we are to announce the way of the Lord. When so many look for easy fixes for the pain they feel, we are to announce the satisfaction of the alternative path that Jesus offers. Our prophetic voice in this season may be one that calls this world to better reflect the patterns of Advent, of waiting, reflecting, and making peace. But we begin Advent by lighting the first candle of the Advent wreath, representing the hope of Christ. We enter this season of waiting, but not waiting without hope. The words of Isaiah echo on today still so strongly. One day, he says, the mountain of God shall rise up, and all people of all nations will make a pilgrimage to see it, and to study the way of the Lord. From there, all nations, all kings and rulers and powers will be judged, and the people who learn on this mountain, who seek the way of God, will take their weapons of war to the forge, and with the sweat of their brow reshape the blood-soaked tools to shovels, hoes, rakes, and plows. With their new gardening equipment, all of the people of earth who have come to know God's way and God's will, as the song says, will study war no more. Christ's coming begins the fulfillment of this promise. Yet we know that this promise is still yet to come. We look and we weep at our world filled still with weapons of war, not only with the drones and missiles that take life so quickly, so indiscriminately, but to the guns that fill our own neighborhoods. We are tired of waiting for these to be beaten down to make tools for flourishing. We're tired of waiting for our economy to be built on life, not on death. But what gets us out of bed each day? What gets us out if not the hope that this promise is true, and that one day God's reign will be complete? As we carol and bring this message of hope, I think it's as much for us to hear as it is for the world to hear. So join in the song that was begun so long ago. Come and carol with us, that the whole earth might know the hope that still shines in the dark. Hear these words from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 24, verses 36 through 44. But about that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will it be with the coming of the Son of Man. Then 2 will be in the field. 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. 2 women will be grinding meal together. 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Thanks be to God for this living word. I wish I didn't have to say this as often as I do, but this passage has a very fraught history of interpretation, and it has taken on a life of its own. It's the famous rapture passage, as people say, except that the concept of the rapture didn't exist until the 1800s, and that it doesn't really make sense if you closely read the text that we just read. Jesus compares the coming of the Messiah to the flood of Noah. So, in that story, those who are taken away are not taken up to heaven, but swept away in the flood. It's not a good thing in this case to be taken away. So, the rapture comparison here doesn't really make sense. And so, no, I think we can safely say that this isn't about the rapture and all its countless depictions in Christian pop culture, since it's relatively recent invention. But then, what is it about? Well, Jesus says to keep away, but what for? It is Advent, and we are all waiting, but what are we waiting for? Are we waiting for Christmas? Because Christmas already happened. How can we wait for Jesus' coming when he already came to us? When so many of the warnings that Jesus gave just before this passage in Matthew have already happened. Things like the destruction of the temple, things like the beginning of the church. But Advent does prepare us for Christmas still. It prepares us for something that has already happened. Even though we are celebrating the historical event of the birth of our Savior 2,000 years ago, we're still somehow not ready for Christmas. And I'm not just talking about all the preparations that we still have, the gifts that we still need to buy and wrap, the travel details or the Christmas Eve meal that we still need to plan. No, Advent actually asks that we take Christmas seriously by slowing down, by remembering that the cultural signifiers that we see this time of year, all that rushing around, the shopping, that may occupy our minds, but that betrays the real reason for Christmas altogether. And ultimately, those things are unsatisfying to us. So we do look forward to Christmas, knowing that we can rush into it sometimes, but rather must prepare to hear the eternal story yet again, to live into this holy cycle of the church year. But again, sort of like in Isaiah, this story is also clearly not finished yet. Jesus asks that we also look ahead to something anticipating that future day when Christ will come to us again. And as we're prepared to meet the past, we also prepare for the future day with hope that that promise of peace will indeed be made real, that the swords and plowshares won't only be a dream, but something we see with our own eyes, clangs of metal on metal with our own ears, as Christ's holy kingdom comes in full. But here, where we stand now, in Advent, between the past and the future salvation of God, who repeatedly comes to us that we might find peace and prosperity, we live and hear Jesus' command to keep awake. Though Jesus promises the future coming, he asks that we don't give our curiosities to that future day our full attention, but thereby sacrificing our present attention. Jesus' warning is to not be swept away as those who don't pay attention. To stay awake means to be present, to listen for the movement of the Spirit, revealing to us where God is active and moving that we might not see with our own eyes yet. There is much to be swept away by, especially in this season. It is understandable if you find yourself in worship today a little swept away, perhaps overwhelmed from Thanksgiving just over, maybe already anticipating Christmas, or wondering if you can finish all the work that you need to before the new year. Or you may feel like these short days leave you tired and aching for some joy. Or that you find that this year you may feel like you're going through the motions of the season, that this year just feels different. But as we may drift off, as the disciples did, into the world of consumption, of isolation, of mindlessness, Advent shouts to us, stay awake, for God is doing something new. Gather yourself and sit and listen to the beautiful song of Christmas that echoes on to this day. Watch and pray each day this season as we witness Christ's coming, this very Christmas and this very day. Amen. Now, I'm usually a bit of a stickler when it comes to Christmas music during Advent. I know that some stores started playing it almost a month ago now, but especially in our corporate worship, I try to avoid the impulse to rush into Christmas before we properly prepare. But given that our theme this year is candlelit carols, as we join in the songs of the season, I felt like we had to make an exception this year. Each week during Advent, we'll be singing or listening to a special Christmas carol that might have a special story behind it. It is our tradition to end our Advent season by singing Silent Night on Christmas Eve. And this year, we'll bookend that time by listening to that dear hymn on this first day of the season. It holds, I think, such a special place in the church and in culture, not only for its beauty, but for something in it that just seems transcendent, to really speak to the coming of Christ. So this recording that we'll play comes from Simon & Garfunkel's third album, and as you'll hear, it grapples, I think, well with what this song means for our modern world today. With our speaker here at the church, it may have been difficult to pick this out a little bit, but in that recording, the piano is mixed fully to the left ear, and the voice of the broadcaster is mixed fully to the right. Today, we have two voices in our ears. We hear of Christ's peaceable arrival and the good news that God has come to save those abandoned by this world. And we hear the news, the reality that this world and the heartbreak in it, the heartbreak that it brings. We hear the advertisements, the busyness, the restlessness of our world. In times, one voice might swell over the other, filling us with peace amidst it all, and sometimes drowning out God's voice. Though released in 1966, we can imagine what the newscaster might be saying today. We know the voices in our ears, which still call for us to go to war, which still deny the health of the poor, who still vilify those of different skin color, who speak as though there is no Christ, who taught us the way of life that is so different from all of these messages we hear. But in the middle of the track is singing of the night when Christ is born. We are to be the voice in the middle, bringing our carols of the good news, the hope for peace into the world, not leaving that world behind, not looking only to the past or only to the future, but to our neighbors, to the world that God loved so much that Christ came to dwell with us in life and to death. Because that is who God is. So Christ is certainly coming again today in our midst. Let us be a welcoming party and seek him out in our midst to announce his coming, the holy into the mundane.